I'm back. Wait, what were you saying?
Derived. Can you like mute yourself?
Okay, so what I was saying is that you were saying it doesn't defeat cognitism, like as in reference to non-cognitism, or just cognitive like stances which we can help.
So if we take out the cognitivist point, are you just saying that because other stances have potential justifications for moral realism, that moral realism is more parsimonious?
Okay, I'm saying because if X can derive
I just need to
and then I'll just explain how this
yeah, I'm trying to like explain what I'm
saying.
Yes.
So
not exactly, hold on, because the distinction between the stances, what I'm saying is that if someone can uphold a distinctive view of that, right, and they can also drive a conclusion through whatever the fuck is, if they can make a truth maker for stances, and there's also potentiality for stances to then ground that, this creates some form of epistemic foundationalism, right? So because this said person can derive, X can fucking derive
believing in them.
Justifications through the said stances and make
I understand what you're saying. Do you understand Zeni's response towards it?
You were sort of fucking like sounded like you were
clearly not, because Zeni had mentioned how there are other stances that still hold within cognitivism that do not hold to realism.
Say this shit. He mentioned that, but I was attacking his conclusion. That's the whole point. I'm saying
what was your attack towards
turn off noise suppression.
My ad reductio was basically pointing out that there is in reference that we should keep realism, or there could be potentiality for realism to be upheld as morally justifiable science.
How does that attack? Wait, excuse me. How does that attack the fact that there are stances that do not hold to realism that still hold to the fact that there are propositions or truth makers?
Oh, my phone's fucking dying. Holy shit, bro.
Therefore, we're just
I was trying to call you.
You on the phone and you sound like that, bro.
Since last time you attack moral realism.
Yeah, I don't know what the fuck.
So, like, if you can't show how objective moral come from facts,
give me a minute.
then the argument I gave
what phone are you on, bro? You have an iPhone? Get on PC, bro.
So you're saying
I'm just terribly confused by what he's trying to say.
Right. You said we're just justified in which, how we go about being non-cognitive. Okay, so what's non-cognitive to you? Like, what's that? What do you define what that is to you?
Well, okay, so do you agree with what I'm saying, or do you think I'm also kind of confused?
Okay, so moral standards where doesn't have like any sort of truth or any
story or whatever.
It's not like air theory.
To be clear, I deny.
Okay, so if we cannot derive, moral realism, why should we have or just be more justified in which, presents a logical rigor, a logical connective towards, in which we should be more justified inside, like, using the razor to like deduct that model or just like consistent like meta-ethical model in which we should be justified in non-cognitive. Why can't we just be justified in like believing moral subjectivism if we cannot prove moral truth, like come from facts, or actually have some form of objective state within the universe, which would just be like a metaphysical thesis. If we cannot give a truth maker to the proposition, then
more
it's
so,
the case
why did he bring in
have any sort of like those attitude upon what moral realism is.
I don't know why you're saying
that doesn't necessarily mean
well, I can
justified
understand the correlation
in
towards the
believing,
topic, but both of your positions
non-cognitives just basically asserts, which is basically like having no truth to morals or falsity at all. Like, say for example, moral subjectivism, right? You can have your own personal beliefs. You could be obtained to that. You could believe morality is subjective and is derived from the processes within the mind and how your emotions work. You could believe in that, and basically all I'm saying is that we have another dictator's way which can settle for another set of a moral belief system, which just grounds, other justifications for other beliefs, etc. Right? Basically just grounds our moral framework. In that case, it's the social
a double pole star can become a moral operator. That's fine.
Social construction, which just allows us to derive a moral framework. So basically, what I'm saying is that we have more options which are more probable and more parsimonious than basically what is presented as non-cognitive, because we can have our own truthful morality, and we could believe within whatever morality this is, which we get from it. Say for example, how Buga thinks rape is moral, he could think rape is moral, and he could just derive from that and just believe within it, right? He doesn't necessarily have to believe it's going to be objective, to take the stance that moral realism doesn't exist, because non-cognitive just basically posits there isn't any truth, right? But if someone has their own truth, right, they're more likely to believe within a subjective or cognitive framework, which can utilize an inference towards their own moral framework being derived from said social constructs. So in that case, I ain't done yet. So if it's the case that this reductio lands, right, the reductio basically presenting that, it should be more parsimonious to have a belief within a more subjective state, because even then we don't have to believe that there is a set of moral objective laws, but we can obtain to our own morality because we have beliefs and etc. It's already affirmed that people have beliefs. Say for example, religion is a good example to then set a way for a social construction and more affirmative about a belief system, right? So if that's the case, that people believe within this subjectively, it doesn't have to be objective. It's just more parsimonious that it could just be justified as a dogmatic truth. More affirmatives could be justified, and it has some form of truth maker. It's not exactly objective within a metaphysical thesis framework from that. So in that case, you don't necessarily need to take, as the scientists suggest, that it's more justified in believing non-cognitive from moralism, but we could have another option like moral subjectivism, which holds more parsimony to believe there is no truth in that value, when we can actually just make a set of observations ethically and come to a conclusion based upon intuition. If that's the case, via the mentality, then it just follows that it's just more justified from that, because we can make those actually truths.
Okay, so are you finally done, bro?
Yes, I am done.
Okay, thank you. All right, so in a binary system, right, where there's only two options and they're mutually exclusive, like moral realism and non-cognitivism, right? If they both cannot be true and you fail, and just assuming this for the argument, if you fail to prove moral realism, which is why you asked the question, well, then why should we be non-cognitivist? If, A is false, then we're justified in believing in not A. So if we know A is false and we're in a strict binary system, which we are right now, since moralism cannot be true while non-cognitivism is also true at the same time, then using the law of excluded middle, we're just then non-cognitivism would be true. And then you start talking about parsimony, right? So the idea of non-cognitivism, I guess, just takes less assumptions than moralism, which just states like that there exist moral statements, and these moral statements have truth APT, and some of them are objective, while some of them are not objective, or all moral statements can either be true or false. I guess non-cognitivism would just be making zero assumption. They just say that, well, they just don't exist altogether. Or moralism would just be making like two, which just states that they do exist, and whilst they exist, they also have truth APTs. So yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Or that's what I'm saying. So yeah, if there's anything else you brought up, you could go ahead and bring it up again besides the parsimony and the why should it be non-cognitive moralism is false.
Yeah. Okay. So hold up. I was actually bringing a reductio towards your argumentation and your conclusion, because verbatim you said more justified in being non-cognitive, right? That's within a specific framework and a social construction between these two opposing beliefs. Okay, but you're also making the suggestion you're just more justified in believing a non-cognitive stance for morals in that case, because even if we do take a stance if they're real or not, we're still talking about morals in which stance is more deductible to be the case, right? There's a multitude of stance and multiple sets of argumentations which obtains to stances, right? Even if it's the case we only take more realism for the case, it doesn't necessarily mean we're more justified in believing, non-cognitism as a stance, because what you're saying is that it's more conclusive to take this as a stance rather than more realism, right? But I'm saying that there's other stances as well, even if we do accept, more realism as this is not the case, and etc., right? Even if, right, I'm giving that strong if, because that's just going to be another logical conjuncture to what I'm saying. We can take another set of moral stances which just can hold more actual, substance than the stance which you give, because your conclusion is just that it's more justified to believe non-cognitism as the case for morals, because we are talking morals in general, because moral realism, assets that all morals are rather just moral laws in general are just real and etc., right? In that case. But it doesn't necessarily entail, because when you say moral statements in non-cognitism, in the framework which you're deriving from, you're deriving that morals, all morals are not true or false. They're just, made upon personal, not personal, just doesn't have any truth at all, like, etc., right? But I'm saying we can make a set of observations from moral subjectivism or just ethical intuition in which we can broad up conclusions which have dogmatic truths to them, and in which we can be justified. Hold on. In which we can be justified in believing as a truth maker for the said proposition, right? So when I say we have a truth maker for the proposition, I'm saying that even if non-cognitism has more parsimony, or just rather, more substance than this specific stance, we have a stance which indicates, which we can gather actually, you know what? It's actually logically consistent or just compossible that moral realism in that said stance can actually be deducted to be the case, even if, there is more, even if we cannot deduct, an operator, because even then there's always another set of laws or just morality which we can fulfill, because there are multiple distinct sets of moral laws. Say, for an example, the Quran, the Bible, the fucking Jewish Hebrew texts. Those are all moral laws set in place which we're supposed to be followed, which is supposed to be the word of God and objective within reality as a metaphysical thesis. Right? So if that's the case, and people can make up subjective argumentations about these subjective beliefs in that case, that could be interpreted as moral subjectivism, yes, as a stance, but it can also be fulfilling the sign thesis about morals being the case if we can add truth makers from a dogmatic attitude and, a dogmatic necessity to grant us this, right? So if that's the case in which we can fill both stances, just, being compulsible that subjectivism, we can hold these views as subjective, these morals are subjective, but we can also prove moral realism exists via with this, right? Then also, Curl, let me read this real quick. I don't think... Bro. Okay, hold on. I don't think you're tracking what I'm saying, Curl. What I'm saying is that... Hold on. I'm not done now. I just got to answer a few questions. Hold on. So, at the same time, right? Sure, he may not disagree with these other set of positions, but he's saying it's more justifiable to believe in cognitive intuition, not cognitism, right? But we're also just, I'm giving an example in which other stances could have parsimony, which can fulfill a set of observations or just truth makers, which fulfill a capable belief system for us to have, more realism as the case, right? I'm given that these propositions have truth makers, right? Even if you can view that they don't have truth makers, right? And if we can't deduct, but there's also the possibility of which we can deduct, right? And based upon observations, etc., or just rather, arguments in general, which are able to justify, just dogmatically justify our view, in that case, then there is considerable belief as to the reason why we should take, more realism or just like truth makers or just truth values being fulfilled from that. That's what I'm saying. It's a direct reductio to what he's saying about the conclusion. It's more justified for it to be the case, which is the ad absurdum, which is in question or etc., right? And I'm providing the reductio towards that. So it doesn't matter if he disagrees with other stances. I'm saying other stances can provide basic or just substance in terms of that.
All right. Look, bro. Look. Do you agree that moral realism and non-cognitism cannot be both true at the same time? Yes or no? Just give a yes or no, bro. Just yes or no.
Why is this relevant to what I just said?
I'm not because it's gonna. You'll understand why, bro. Just can you
No,
like
no,
say
no,
yes
no,
or no?
no, no, no. I know. I want to know why. No, I don't want to see why. I want to know
Look,
why right now at this
okay,
moment.
look, bro, because obviously they are two different things. So if A is not the case, and in a binary system where they cannot both be true at the same time, then not A, or we're just justified in believing not A. So we have A equals more realism, and then we have not A. You know that would equal non-cognitivism, right? A and not A cannot be both true at the same time. Obviously, you agree that there cannot be, more realism and non-cognitive at the same time. You agreed that more realism is not the case. Okay, if more realism is not the case, then we're justified in believing the opposition, which is just not A. So, or no, then we'd have rational justification that not A is the case. And all these other stances you're bringing up, like moral subjectivism, right? I'm not gonna lie, like all of that. Can you just like provide, or can you just explain why they're more parsimonious in my view, or can you explain why they have
Okay,
more?
so I don't know, like I don't know if you were tracking the entire time or that entire Yap session, which you didn't bother to pay attention to because you're actually so fucking slow. It's basically
No, can you
just
just respond to it
no,
just
no,
bro?
okay, yeah, I'm doing that. Just don't try and interrupt. What I'm
Go
saying
ahead, bro.
is
Go ahead.
that these are a set of which can be fulfilled by truth. Make okay, hold on. I gotta fucking take a call now. Fuck.
All right, Archie, just to be clear, bro, do like, who do you think is winning, man?
Yeah, man. You gotta see that.
Like, why did he talk for so long?
Can you peep that like random use of rhetoric that was like so unnecessary?
Yeah, I don't know why he needed to say that. Like, bro,
Like that's so
all I
unnecessary.
asked him was one question. Oh my god.
Yes, Zeni, I know you're winning.
Thank you, man. Thank you, buddy. Yo, we just need like the big Archie, the tier 0 Archie, the one that beat Apollo multiple times, man. Should like pipe up and like explain like, is any winning or is Cyber winning, man?
He said he'll
All
get
right,
it.
buddy.
Don't worry, buddy. I've beaten Mr. Cyber twice, so even if you do lose, it's always better
Okay,
than
I'm back. So that entire Yap session was just a reductive to your conclusion, right? Your conclusion, it being more justified rationally. No, basically what I just said is that other stances can have those asset systems. Say for an example, right? Moral subjective system, right? We could just believe that the morals of the Bible is just subjective, right? And we could argue or just take a stance that they are morally justified from a subjective point of view and how they affect, our system of beliefs, moral frameworks, etc., right? But in that turn, we can also, come to a dogmatic truth system or just a moral structure which gives a truth maker for the stance as well. So what I'm saying is that there could be potential justifications in other stances which, provide epistemic foundationalism to the point of moral realism, which we can provide. That's what I'm saying. Other stances have potential justifications to justify why moral realism can be the case based on a set of observations from what was said earlier, right? Your entire point about us believing in the fucking non-cognitive rule as more justified in that said framework, there's other stances which already uphold or, can contain moral realism as the fucking case, or just could actually, provide a composable model in which allows for deduction of a logically consistent model, which shows that it can be the case or there's a truth maker for the proposition. Because you said if we disagree, then it's obviously non-cognitism, which has, more rationalization, right? But even if we do disagree, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to have more parsimonious towards that because, and again, I'm going to repeat this real quick. We can have other stances which uphold moral realism, isn't necessarily affirm it, but can uphold it through potential justifications, which make it more parsimonious, and the other stance more parsimonious. It does not necessarily mean in which, fucking non-cognitives has more parsimonious than this specific thing, right? Because the other stances provide an epistemic foundationalism framework for that. So again, that's the ad reductio to your conclusion that we're just more justified within that.
Okay, look, you've just made more propositions. You just said that these all uphold more realism. So these all have more, they all say something, right? That means they all have these unjustified assumptions that have nothing to do, or that would just make your hypotheses more improbable than mine. And also, how are these stances more rationally justified? I'm dead ass. I just never heard you say that. You know, that these other stances are more rational. You brought up these other stances as a way to say that, well, even if moralism is not the case, then we also have moral subjectivism. We also have X. We also have Y. Blah 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 blah. Right? You never explained how all these other stances were going to be more rationally justified than non-cognitivism, and you also just never justified as to how they're more parsimonious. All you said was they all have these things that uphold it. Yes. But yeah, we can conclude now. I don't. Like, I
Yeah,
don't.
no. We're not gonna conclude this. I'm gonna fucking okay. You know what? Anyways, I'm gonna fucking counteract that real quick. I didn't say they are more parsimonious because there's a synthetical distinction between what I fucking said, you retard. I said that there are potential justifications which allow a composable model, right? I'm not saying these stances, in this framework are gonna have a more parsimonious view. I'm saying there's potentiality, and which gives us, some form of epistemic foundationalism, which allows substance to deduct a logically consistent model, right? I'm not affirming these stances, right? But I'm suggesting there's potentiality within that, which doesn't necessarily mean we are more justified within your entire conclusion. That's the ad reductio, you retard. You cannot track that, right? And let's get back to that point real quick, right? That's just going to be a straw man based upon you affirming this is what I said, despite me saying a completely synthetically distinct proposition. The proposition is not the same through that. If you cannot track that, there is a problem within your tracking skills. I'm sorry to say. And now let's get to the other point, right? No, don't cut off real quick. Let's get to the other point, right? And you said you said they're unjustified, right? I don't care. No. Let me counteract your point. Don't try and interrupt. I don't care if they're unjustified to you or don't actually have any substance within the actuality of the framework we have between these two propositions, right? I'm saying there's potentiality for justification. I'm not saying there is, some form of X which will be granted towards fulfilling more realism. I'm saying there's potentiality which allows for more doxastic attitude, towards a truth maker for the proposition, right? If there's potentiality there, then obviously it's gonna follow the case that moral realism can be upheld by these other beliefs which ground its existent foundation to the fucking whatever the fucking state of being it is, acts within the damn framework. It does not mean there is no justification at all. I don't care if you consider it's unjustified or not. The point is that there can be justification. That's the whole entire point, which can grant that there's more parsimonious things, towards your conclusion that non-conscious views, can be refuted and can be taken as not the case. I'm not affirming that it's not going to be the case because what I'm saying is just synthetically distinct. It's not, the same thing as saying I'm affirming these stances, therefore my stance is going to be upheld according to this entire fucking thing because, I'm a stupid retard who can't understand what I'm asserting, right? No, I am not doing that. I am completely asserting something different, which you don't track. You never gave a fucking refutation besides saying that these are unjustified without actually attacking the content of the argumentation. You're just attacking the fact that these argumentations don't actually have a fucking justification for, not the argumentation, the fucking, example of the analogy doesn't have the internal states of affair for justification for the fucking, proposition, even though it's only potentiality for justification, which can uphold moral realism. These other stances could create epistemic foundationalism for that, right? What you're saying is that they don't actually have an affirmation to them that has justification. I'm saying there's potentiality. There's distinctness between potentiality and actuality. They are conceptually distinct. They are not the same, bro. They will never be the same thing. When you grant something, it just means it's possible for this to be the case. You're saying we're more justified in non-cognitivism if we disagree with that. But again, I counter that because even then, if there's potentiality, this allows a former, ad reductio to the point, which even if we do disagree with moralism being the stance, it is capable of being upheld if there is potentiality there. Right? I affirm there's potentiality rather than actuality, which you did not track. Again, so if there's potentiality to that, then that means there could be more parsimonious things within the, framework granted by the potentiality point, there's just more parsimonies if this follows, right? Which it does from the potentiality, gifted to that. So in that case, a justification, no. If granted by justification for that,
Hey, Tika,
it's just never the
Ududuka,
case
can
that
debate
you
now.
follow.
I'm home.
So,
Okay, look, are you done, bro? Like, thank you.
now we can just go. Now we just can go to conclusions like you wanted.
Hey, Uduka, we can debate now.
Bro. Look, bro. So you said that there's more potential justification, so we're motivated to believe in it. That's just like an appeal to quantity justification. Just because there's more possible justifications doesn't mean the view is better or it's more likely to be true. Like that doesn't follow at all. So then you said that even if we deny realism, I don't like, dude. That doesn't really matter. Then you said that therefore realism is more parsimonious. Oh my lord! Like you do know
Yo, you just debated him, bro. Let me get my debate in, bro. We agreed to debate.
no, bro. Look, the guy just said like,
If Infinity's gonna cut it, let me just counter this entire bit. Hold on, Infinity.
Oh
Give
my
me a
god.
second. Okay, so Zeni, I don't think you're tracking again. I'm not saying. Okay.
yeah. Thank you, Kurt, for meeting here, man. Thank you very much.
No
All
problem.
right, so look, I'll continue. I'll continue. So look, so yeah, look, you just said that therefore realism is more parsimonious. I don't see how that follows at all. Just because there are more possible justifications for something, then we're not motivated to believe in non-cognitism.
Bro, what you
Therefore,
talking
it's
about?
You
more
just said
parsimonious.
that,
This
bro.
guy's
You
argument.
just said that.
Yeah, the
Oh
guy's
god.
argument. He just
Yeah,
said
yo,
that.
give a new argument, bro. Give a new argument.
If there's more justifications for more realism and more, then
Okay,
there's
listen,
no.
I'm not. Okay, excuse me. I'm not very interested in what you're saying because I already understand what you're saying. But I'm more interested in what 2K is saying. If what I described in chat is not what you're saying, someone unmute him, by the way.
He's
Wait,
confused, bro.
Archer,
Like
you
I don't. This
judge?
guy just.
What exactly? Excuse me. What exactly is your argument? Because from what I'm hearing, it seems you're trying to suppose that we're more motivated, or we should be more motivated to believe more realism. Because even if he were to deny more realism, critique it, or in some way show it's incomplete, we have other cognitivist positions that still defend it. So since it doesn't defeat the overall arching position, and since there are potential justifications for realism and other outlying positions, we still have more motivation to believe it, since there's a justification for non-cognitism. But I think that
whose mic is
Yeah,
that?
can you
I
mute?
think Zeni
Can you mute the mic, bro?
explained and asked.
Give me a second. I'll clarify.
I think you failed to. Can we
Hey,
not over
Archie,
talk
can
each
you
other,
repeat
bro?
that? Archie, can you?
All right, okay, hold on. You wanted the clarification of my argumentation, right?
Wait, no. Before the Archie, can you repeat the judgment real quick, just so we can all hear?
Yo, you're not me. Yeah,
Yo, Mr. Archie, can you repeat it, bro?
you're not me,
These
Zeni.
My bad. I had
no.
to hop on PC because for some
Zeni
reason
lost.
it's like to speak while I'm speaking. So yeah, we're not gonna have that.
Your mic is cutting out, bro. Your shit lagging.
Bro, hold on.
Oh, he wasn't
Or
keeping
I think
judgment.
it's
Oh, I
your, I
thought he
don't
was.
know. I think you have two sets on, nigga, or something.
No, I don't have any sets on. I actually don't even have APO. So wait, is it on now? Is it good now?
No, it's good now.
Yeah. Okay. So
Bro, it's not good anymore, bro. I
never
don't know what
mind,
the
bro.
fuck
He
just
went
happened.
back.
Take
Yeah,
away.
his mic just died.
Is it cool now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, so yeah, TK.
Yeah, what's up, bro? I can clarify.
So can you explain what was wrong about what I said?
Yeah, give me a second. Okay, so what I'm saying is that if there is potentiality, to that, right, then it just forms epistemic foundationalism and just, grants more substance. Like, if there is, because I'm granting potentiality exists, like, what do you fucking say? Oh, yeah. I'm saying if there is potentiality, it follows that there is also, okay, hold on. Let me finish. What I'm saying is that if there is, okay, hold on, bro. Let me finish. Chill. Well, bro, you are lagging out hard. Does anybody else hear that?
Yeah, he is lagging. So look,
my
like
God.
Archie, bro. I don't know which one you're talking, but ATK at TD, let's debate.
Bro, relax, bro.
Can you relax, bro? All right, listen. Relax. All right, listen. Again, what do you mean by there could be potentiality?
Okay, so what I mean by there could be potentiality. What I'm saying is that we can grant, other stances have potentiality to uphold moral realism, right? Even if we do disagree that moral realism, like within the framework of the binary oppositions, cannot be the case, right? He's saying
how is that distinct from
okay. Hold on. I'm trying to explain that. Holy shit. Okay, so again, you're saying that it doesn't defeat cognitism. Yeah, like you said, it doesn't defeat and this nigga's on deaf.
All right, look, let's debate. All right, so look, we agreed to debate. Look,
Yo, hold
there was
on.
confusion.
I'm back. Wait, what were you saying?
He's back. Go ahead.
Okay, so what I was saying is that you were saying it doesn't defeat cognitism, right? As in reference to non-cognitism, or just cognitive stances which we can hold.
So if we take out the cognitivist point, are you just saying that because other stances have potential justifications for moral realism, that moral realism is more parsimonious?
Okay, I'm saying because if X can derive
But I just need to
okay, yeah. I'm trying to explain what I'm saying.
So yes.
Not exactly. Hold on, because the distinction between the stances, Grandpa. What I'm saying is that if someone can uphold a distinct view of that, right, and they can also drive a conclusion through whatever the fuck is, if they can make a truth maker for stances, and there's also potentiality for stances to then ground that, this creates some form of epistemic foundationalism, right? So because this said person can derive, X can fucking derive the justifications through the said stances and make.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. Do you understand Zeni's response towards it?
Yeah, sort of.
Well, clearly not, because Zeni had mentioned how there are other stances that still hold within cognitivism that do not hold to realism.
Okay, he mentioned that, but I was attacking his conclusion. Why didn't add up? Like, that's the whole point. I'm saying.
What was your attack towards that?
Yeah, my ad reductio was basically pointing out that there is in reference that we should believe realism, or there could be potentiality for realism to be upheld as more of a justifiable stance. That is what
how does that attack? Wait, excuse me. How does that attack the fact that there are stances that do not hold to realism that still hold to the fact that there are propositions or truth makers?
Oh, hold on, my phone's fucking dying, bro. Holy shit, bro, this phone's ass. I'll return. Hold on, give me like.
You on the phone and you sound like that, bro.
Yeah.
Yo, I don't know what the fuck is going on with your mic, bro, but alright, man.
Give me a minute. I'm not going.
Wait, my shit, son. What phone are you on, bro?